It says another felony defendant's release from New Orleans Parish Jail called a grave error. No pun intended, in case anybody ended up getting killed because you let the wrong guy out. And in this particular case, this guy was a freaking monster. All right, let me see what I can find here, folks. There's two stories that I want to share with you guys in relation to the New Orleans saga that's still ongoing. Nothing in relation to Derrick Groves because that guy is gone. But is he so far gone that maybe he's DOA? Yo, people are saying, man, maybe this dude's dead. I mean, how do you become that much of a ghost? Everybody's going to make a mistake. Like, nobody's going to be perfect enough to stay on the run. But there's been a handful of times where people have really gotten away. The guys that escaped from Alcatraz, they're still gone. D.B. Cooper's been gone. The guy from Ohio that we talked about that was been gone for 50 years. But even though there's nothing in relation to Derrick Groves, there was a mistaken release that just took place 2 weeks ago involving a guy by the name of Khalil Bryant, who was mistakenly released because he was thought to be some other guy. He was mistakenly let out. And do you think that he told them people that he wasn't supposed to be released and he was a violent offender and that he still had charges and time that he was faced? Hell nah. Buddy ran, and he's still gone now. Well, folks, they just did an interview with the guy who was supposed to be released. They said that the names were similar. I don't know what this guy's name is. We're getting ready to see together.
I was waiting for them to come get me. Nobody came.
Oh.
Now to a story only on 6. That man speaking out exclusively to WDSU after he says the jail was supposed to release him last week, but they mistakenly released a man named Khalil Bryant instead.
That's right. WDSU reporter Shay O'Connor is live and tells us that the man who shares the same last name with Khalil Bryant says the extra hours spent in jail has made him decide to change his life around. Shay?
Holy shit. Holy shit. You mean, so good for the fact that he only had to spend a couple of extra hours in jail. And also, that was enough for him to realize he needs to get his life together because, look, you can get lost in the system, and this guy almost did.
Good evening to you, Stella and Travers. Yeah, that 20-year-old did not want his identity revealed because he tells me he still has an open case, but he does share the same last name as Khalil Bryant. So I'm going to refer to him as Mr. Bryant. Today, he tells me he's just thankful to be out of jail.
Yeah.
Oh, I got bonded out at like 5 o'clock the afternoon. He said you're going to be out here like 1 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock. I was waiting for them to come get me. Nobody came.
Mr. Bryant says after spending about 20 days in jail on what he calls a minor offense, his mom paid $2,000 to bond him out last week on a charge of theft of a firearm. He was excited to potentially be released Thursday or Friday morning.
I heard microphones walking around the cell like the pod, but nobody came to my cell. I was like, all right, they must well get me in the morning. I woke up in the morning, still nothing.
He later found out he was listed as released on paperwork.
I called my mom. I was like, I'm not in their system. What happened? She called the bonds people. They was like, oh, your son got laid out last night at 1 a.m.
His mom equally stunned.
I keep calling like, why is he not out? He got bonded. Why is he not out?
The 20-year-old, who stands about 5'6" tall and smaller in stature, was mixed up with this man, 30-year-old Khalil Bryant, who city officials say is about 300 pounds and well over 6 feet tall. He says OPSO officials went as far as giving Khalil his shoes and clothes when released.
The dude came to me. He was like, they got my clothes. I was like, y'all seriously? This big man got my clothes? Like, y'all didn't realize that that's not his stuff? I was just like, no way y'all let him go. I was like, no way.
Mr. Bryant says adding insult to injury, he sat in jail longer until everything was sorted out.
Took an extra day, and I was just in there in a dirty cell, sitting there for an extra day, and they didn't want to let me out because of their mistakes.
The 20-year-old says the entire situation has led him to decide he needs to make some changes in his life.
I don't want to go anywhere close to a police station ever again. But what goes from here, that was a lesson. That's what lesson learned, and a lesson I don't want to learn again.
And again, Khalil Bryan is still on the loose. Now, I should mention that I reached out to OPSO as well as NOPD for more information on a timeline and when they were notified about the mistaken release. I have not heard back at this time, but again, Khalil Bryan is still on the loose. If you know anything that could lead to an arrest, you're being urged to contact Crime Stoppers at 822-1111. Reporting live from OJC, Shay O'Connor, WDSU News.
Did you notice she had a fly flying around her the entire time she was doing that? That shit had to be nerve-wracking. Buddy said he was locked up on a minor offense. He's got a theft of a firearm.
I always wanted to learn it.
Sorry, I didn't mean for that audio to be playing right there. That's the risk that you run when... Oh, shit, it was playing a old After Prison Show video about Kelly. First of all, they were two totally different dimensions. Talking about the guy that was mistakenly released, he's 300 pounds, over 6 feet tall. This other guy was 5'6". And here's the thing. Let me tell you what I gained from watching that. Buddy was green as a frickin' a green dot. He was as green as this green screen behind me that you see as a jail cell right now. If they were in the same cell block together, which I don't know that they were. It kind of sounds like maybe they were, because what that young guy, 20 years old, was saying was he said he heard them calling over the microphone. What were they calling over the microphone? If they were calling his name and he stayed in that bunk, that's on him. But if they were in the same cell block, Khalil Bryan probably looked at this guy like, oh, shit. Oh, your mom about to bond you out? Hey, man, shit, good deal. Said he doesn't want his name and his identity released because he's still got an open case. I'm not really sure what that's got to do with much. My thing would be, you know, protect your identity, because there's another guy who's acting as you out there. Damn, they just don't be checking nothing. They don't be checking nothing. You know, I thought the guy that was getting released, who was supposed to be released, was actually like done with his time. He had served his debt to society. Now he's just getting bonded out. Like when I think about in my state, when you get bonded out, man, they're doing fingerprints. They're making sure there ain't nothing else that you got to hold on. Obviously down in the South, man, hey, they still running mail down through the train system. Like some Wild Wild West type shit. And they took Buddy's clothes. You know, he probably had some name brand shit. He had some J's down there. He came home with some he had to take the jail slides home with him. He did have those name brand Nautica socks on, I saw right there. All right, so that was the one thing that I wanted to share with you guys right there. Now, real quick, folks, I want to share a story with you. If you think that that's crazy, they did this earlier this year, back in January, and nobody was ever notified that there was a mix-up in a prisoner being released, because they didn't even know that they let the wrong guy out for over 4 months. Let me share this story with you real quick. It says another felony defendant's release from New Orleans Parish Jail called a grave error. No pun intended, in case anybody ended up getting killed because you let the wrong guy out. And in this particular case, this guy was a freaking monster. Before the May jailbreak and last week's mistaken release of 30-year-old Khalil Bryan, the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office in December, I thought it was January, let out another felony defendant from the jail amid a mix-up with his bond paperwork, which attorneys described as an error that wasn't discovered for more than 4 months. Damn, man, that's actually not funny at all. The public was never notified about the earlier mishap involving 32-year-old David A. Jones, who OPSO released despite a judge's order that he be held without bond. The district attorney's office didn't know Jones had been let out until April, shortly before his trial on charges of second-degree kidnapping and child trafficking charges. Unfortunately, as the date of this correspondence, and here's the other crazy part, just because they didn't find out for 4 months later doesn't solve anything. This guy is still on the run right now. They can't catch nobody. The fact that they caught 9 of the 10 escapees who broke out back in May, that's pretty surprising, given the fact that this guy is also still on the run. Unfortunately, as of the date of this correspondence, Mr. Jones has not been rearrested and is presumably on the run. Williams wrote in the April 8th letter to Sheriff Susan Hudson, which called his release a grave error. The letter was obtained by the newspaper. I hope you will take this opportunity to review your policies and procedures to ensure that nothing like this occurs again. On the same day, a judge issued a warrant for Jones' arrest. Court records show, he ended up turning himself in. And had he not done so, they'd have never caught him. Court records show Jones turned himself in on April the 14th after 134 days passed since his release. Damn. I don't know why Buddy turned himself in. He must feel like he's going to beat those crazy charges he got. Or maybe he didn't have nowhere else to go. You see these videos of people bonding out complete strangers, and they're like, yo, why did you bond me out? I was living better in there than I would be on the streets. It's kind of crazy to think.